Hello everyone, welcome back to The Eternal Watcher, and today I'm going to be continuing my series of Doctor Who podcasts, The Best and Worst of Who. Today is the fourth episode looking at the first part of Tom Baker's tenure as the Doctor, also known as the Hinchcliffe years, which spanned from seasons 12 to 14, aka 1974 to 1977. Quick note, this was recorded before I rebranded my channel to The Eternal Watcher, and so I do say my channel's name as The Fifth Dimension, or perhaps Dimension 5 Productions, any of my old names, just to let you know that that is the case. But anyway, please do enjoy, subscribe if you're new here, and please do comment down below with your opinions on this era of Doctor Who. I hope you enjoy, and just a quick note before we start, I'm actually going to be going on a camping trip for the next few days. I'm not going to be back until Tuesday, but when I do, I'm going to be uploading my Moon Knight Episode 2 Summon the Suit review, as well as my Fantastic Beasts The Secrets of Dumbledore review on the Wednesday. With that out of the way, I hope you enjoy watching this, and let's start the podcast. Hello everyone, my name is Charlie and welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who YouTube video on the Fifth Dimension, where I love to talk about anything related to Doctor Who. Today, I'm continuing my podcast series, The Best and Worst of Who, in which every episode I discuss, with a guest, a different era of Doctor Who and discuss our favourite and least favourite stories from that particular era. And today, we're going to do the Baker years, the Tom Baker eras to be specific. But since this is such a huge era, I've decided to split it into two sections. The first of which is the Hinchcliffe era. Although I know Robot wasn't quite in that era, we're still going to be discussing seasons 12 through 14, or Robot through the Talons of Weng-Chiang. And today I am joined by another guest. We have Astro Sleep. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm just, yeah.
Awesome. So, so today we're going to be discussing the Hinchcliffe era. Well, the Hinchcliffe era plus Robot. And I feel this is often renowned as the golden age of Doctor Who. Although it may not be some people's favorite era, this is when it proper became, a British institution. Everyone loved it. The ratings, the viewing figures had never been higher. It really was prospering. So, I generally, although it's not my favorite era ever, I really do love this era. What would you say?
Again, I think everyone who's a Doctor Who fan has nostalgia for this era, especially I think everyone looks back on season 12 as the best season of Doctor Who. It was the first one Blu-ray released, wasn't it? So
yeah, and obviously we've got season 14 as well. And really, 12, 13, and 14, people really loved all of those. I feel it's the most consistently loved run of Doctor Who seasons. Maybe there were season 6, 7, 8, maybe, but even then, this is I don't think there's a bad story in this era, so it's going to be quite controversial. The least favorites, considering bit of a disclaimer, for my least favorites at least, they're not bad. They're just not quite as good as the others. It's a really great era.
I'm going to get a lot of flack for my least favorites and all that, because if anyone on the Discord knows, my takes on this era can be pretty hot.
Yeah. That said, I feel everyone ranks these stories so closely together that I don't know. It's not I feel as I was saying, it's a very consistent era. Certain parts of Doctor Who's history have been very hit and miss for me, at least. The Colin Baker era, definitely the Sylvester McCoy era. The later parts I feel were a bit erratic and scattershot, whereas this is more, stable, and that's what I love about this era as well. So, obviously, this since the title of this video is the Tom Baker years, Tom Baker is often renowned as the best Doctor, by lots of rankings. Him and Tennant typically are number 1 and 2. I would say he's definitely in my top 5. He's probably my 4th or 5th favorite Doctor. I really, really like him as a Doctor. I think he's a fantastic actor and was definitely, worthy of having 7 seasons. Whereabouts in your ranking would Tom Baker go?
So we're going to get on to my first controversial one. I think for me in my table, he's in the middle, sort of around 6 and 7.
Yeah,
List.
that's fair enough.
You've got like controversial ones that I prefer more: 12, 6, and 8. They're my top 3.
Yeah,
And they
good
change.
choices.
I think Baker stays around the middle purely because I don't know. Partly wanting to be different, but also partly because everyone. I appreciate what everything is in this era, but I think the lows it hits, especially in the Williams and J&T era, are lower than most other Doctors.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, good choices for your top 3. Yeah, I mean, I feel it's obviously an unpopular opinion. I feel the average placement of Tom Baker's Doctor maybe isn't first anymore, as people have got more appreciation for other Doctors like Troughton, and McGann and Capaldi. But yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. As long as he's not, 13th, that's fine. Anyway, but yeah, I really like Tom Baker's Doctor. I feel he just obviously, I feel Tom Baker is one of the best actors to ever grace Doctor Who alongside Capaldi. Like, he's such a fantastic actor. And just his humor as well. Like, I feel he had more of like a dry wit in this era compared to his like goofiness in the Williams era. Not that that was unwelcome, but I feel his humor is definitely peaked in like season 13, season 14, wouldn't you say?
I agree. I think once he grows into that role past Robot, like he starts off on a really good start, and then
Oh yeah,
it takes off. He's one of those Doctors that doesn't need an introduction because he's Tom Baker. He's one of them. I think Davis put it best. He's the best cast, one of the best casting, purely because he's such a strange person. He doesn't need to act all the time. He can just play himself.
Yeah, exactly. Like some Doctors, I feel they take a few stories to get into the role. Like, I feel Troughton didn't really come into his own maybe until the later part of season 4. I feel Pertwee, maybe not even until Inferno, but Tom Baker is literally his first episode. He is the same person he is until like obviously I feel he does undergo a slight change at the start of season 15, maybe because of obviously the change in producer, but generally this is the person that he establishes throughout the majority of his run. Besides season 18, we don't talk about that. Yeah, so we might as well get cracking talking about the stories then. Why don't you start us off, Astro Sleep, with a story that you really like, not your favorite, but just one you really like.
Okay, I think the elephant in the room. I'm going to address Ark in Space.
Oh yeah, Ark in Space is fantastic.
Ark in Space for me, if anyone knows me, I've gone on a bit of a journey with Ark in Space because I watched it for the first time a few years back and just thought I don't get what the hype about this is because I felt it went on. I know it's 4, but I felt it was a bit too slow. And then when I got the collection set for Christmas, I rewatched it and I thought, no, this is pretty good. Still not amazing, but it's still solid, like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel this was one of the first classic Doctor Who stories I watched. Although I don't even have it on DVD, I watched it on this other website. But yeah, I feel it's just a really solid story. I didn't like it as much before because I hadn't really seen much New Who, but I feel this is such just a classic, it's just a classic example of what a Doctor Who story should be. It's got everything. It's got a monster that, it's got the stuff that infects people. You've obviously got the Wern, who are monsters in prosthetics. You've got people running about a spaceship. It's got everything that a classic Doctor Who story should have. It even feels a bit cliche, but it's executed so well, you just can't hate it.
Yeah, that's what I love about Doctor Who. When it does something that's cliche, that it sometimes it still works purely because on the strength of the episodes. So I think Ark in Space is one of those. I mean, you can even get around the bubble wrap issue because of how strong the performances are around it. Like the person who plays Noah, I can never remember his name, but like his fear at bubble wrap hand makes any schoolboy want to go down and take all the bubble wrap from the dad and put it around their hand and act like they are Noah.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel lots of people like to say, "Oh, the bubble wrap wasn't a very good effect." Bubble wrap wasn't actually as used in the time, like it wasn't as mainstream. So, we're so used to just, what bubble wrap looks like that. I don't know. I feel that must have looked a lot better back in the day, like most classic Who.
Well, some classic Who still holds up, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Maybe not as much in the earlier days, but yeah, certainly in the 80s, some of the stuff was actually really good. But
Often
yeah,
light off.
mm, yeah. So
You're gonna
we might as well go around to another story that we like before maybe going a tad negative. Well, maybe not negative per se, just a little bit less positive. So another story I really like for now is Genesis of the Daleks. I know it's a really, really cliche story. It's not my favorite of this era, but it's definitely up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was considering it first,
Hmm.
but I didn't know that would be your favorite. So I
Yeah. Yeah, this is like, as I was saying, a very cliche for someone's favorite. That Caves of Androzani, City of Death, they're very generic choices. For good reason. They're really good stories. Genesis of the Daleks. Oh
you
god.
don't need context for them.
Hmm.
The three you've listed, you don't need context for them, which I think is why Genesis works so well. It's 6 parts,
Hmm.
but it flies by. That's another one I went on a journey with.
Yeah, I used to not be a fan of Genesis. Actually, I believe this is actually the first classic Doctor Who story I watched. And being on like a diet of New Who, yeah, wasn't too keen on a 2.5 hour long Doctor Who story with companions and a doctor I didn't really know. That said, yeah, you don't really need context for it. I do have some very small gripes with it, like the scenes with Sarah and the Mutos down in the caves. I feel that was just a bit okay, not bad, but just a bit slowed it a bit. But honestly, all the scenes with Davros and Nida as well, most fantastic side character. I feel he's a really interesting villain.
Like when you think he's turning, and then he doubles
Yeah,
and triples down.
yeah,
I love that. I did
he's
not see
fantastic.
it at all on first viewing.
Yeah, he's such a great he's not even a complete villain. Like there's so many layers to his character built up over maybe 15-20 minutes of screen time over this 2.5 hour long story. I feel this is a real testament to how well this is written. Just yeah, I cannot go over how brilliant this is, and just the concept as well. Like, Hinchcliffe demanding, a more innovative script from Terry Nation, and he delivered. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think you raised a good point though about Sarah. I think during this era she does get shafted a bit.
Mm, yeah.
I feel better with her too. I mean, she has that fantastic chemistry with Tom Baker. Whenever they're in the scene together, they're gold.
Mm,
But she's more of the typical damsel in distress companion than she was.
yeah. I feel like when I was first seeing her in Genesis of the Daleks, I did think that she was a bit of that like damsel in distress kind of character. And looking back now, after I've watched all the '60s stories, I feel honestly she could have just been in between Victoria and Zoe. She was very much that much of a companion. Discounting season 11. Yeah, so we've discussed a bit of Genesis of the Daleks. Oh, just to ask you your overall thoughts on the story.
Ooh, I think it's just genius because I read a story about how it's supposed to be created. It was just going to be another rerun of the Daleks,
Yeah,
and
like
then
Planet. Yeah.
they turned it down from having after they did the Daleks and then the Planet of the Daleks, which is basically the same story.
Mm.
And then there was going to be another one, and then they decided, you know what, we'll do the Genesis, and thank goodness they did because it's such a good story. Davros is fantastic, and all the characters are memorable, which for such a big story is an achievement in classic Who, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I feel Classic Who, while it's generally like I feel Classic Who is naturally preferred by the vast majority of people who've seen both the classic and modern series. But at the end of the day, I feel the more memorable characters or the most, you know, um, remembered characters by like the general audience and the public are a New Who, really. If you say to someone, "Oh, Nida was really good," chances are most people won't know who he is. But if you say, "Oh, I'm struggling to think of an example, to be honest." But you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, uh, uh, if you said, say, a Shielder, or
Hmm.
River Song or
Yeah, everyone will know who
yeah.
they are, even though I don't know. I feel just I feel if I was arguing to someone why I prefer Classic Who to New Who, I would probably show them this or Frontier in Space. Something like that, a very like epic,
Fact,
spacefaring story.
I bought a Genesis of the Daleks for my mate's birthday, which is on Monday.
Hmm.
So there we go. Spoilers. Sorry if you're watching.
Yeah, so we've covered Genesis of the Daleks, we've covered Ark in Space, a couple of solid season 12 stories. Now, Astro Sleep, would you like to move us to not your least favorite of this era, but just one, that's lower down in your ranking?
One of the weaker ones for me. This might come up as a shock. From season 13, Seeds of Doom.
No, really?
Really?
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's like burning hot take that everyone like crucifies me for on Discord, but I never have got it, and I may come around to it when I eventually get around to actually buying it rather than watching it on a website. But I just think I never. Yeah, for me, it's just like a B Tech Terror of the Vervoids.
Yeah, that's fair enough, I guess. I can't say I agree, but just yeah, that's fair enough. I can understand. I do like Seeds of Doom. I think it has some really great action in it as well. The Crinoid looks fantastic. Obviously it's a famed factoid that it was an Axon costume painted green.
But it looks better than the Axon costume. That's the important thing.
Yeah, it does. It was like not upscaled. Redone much better, I'd say. And I do like it how it's a six-parter, but it doesn't feel like six parts. I feel, because we've got the first two episodes in Antarctica, and then we move it to Harrison Chase's manor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it rolls a bit too much around the manor, though.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It could have been a bit more.
I think my main gripe with it, I think it's the pacing. If anything, the ideas are fine, the characterizations are fine, yeah, the appearances are fine. I just find the pacing's a bit meandering.
Yeah, I can understand that. I do like Unit's involvement though.
Yeah,
I think it's just quite nice to see Unit again, even though it's just not the same without the Brigadier.
Oh, it never would be.
Yeah. Although we're not going to go into unit dating here.
No, let's not bring that up.
No, it's a tad confusing. Considering apparently Invasion is set in 1979, yet Mordred Undead states that it was 1976 he retired. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to go on to one I'm not as fond of. Planet of Evil from Series 13. Yeah, I don't know. I feel this has some really interesting ideas, like the stuff with the antimatter and that cool cliffhanger where the Doctor just like falls in, and you get some really amazing set design, some of the best they've ever done for Classic Who. But at the end of the day, I feel this is just a really dull story. I didn't really find myself invested in this very much at all.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair because it's just like it's a by the numbers story, isn't it? There's some fantastic moments, like you said, thrown in there, but it's just average compared to the rest of the season, compared to season 12 and 14 as well.
Yeah, I feel this was them. They were still sort of finding their feet a little bit, like within Series 13 we had Terror of the Zygons, which was just kind of a Pertwee leftover, really, similar to Robot. And then we had this, which was a bit of an experimental one before they sort of settle with the gothic horror that we had in Pyramids of Mars, Android Invasion, Brain of Morbius, Seeds of Doom.
Yeah, I want to ask you now, just on a side note, do you think Terror of the Zygons works as season 13, sorry, or would you prefer it as the season 12 finale rather than Revenge of the Cybermen?
It's interesting because, like, a finale, Classic Who didn't really have the finale as a concept per se. They didn't really raise the stakes. It was just another story that happened to be the last one, I guess. But I don't know, really. I would have chosen this to be in season 11, but I probably would have preferred it just to say that this was the finale, and Revenge of the Cybermen. I've not actually seen Revenge of the Cybermen. I've heard some pretty bad things about it though. And I have been to the
A bit underrated. That's pure because I love the Cybermen. They are my favorite recurring villain.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The Master's probably mine, but the Cybermen are definitely up there.
Speaking
oh, sorry.
Deadly Assassin. That's the next one I want to bring up.
Deadly Assassin for good or bad?
Oh, for good.
Oh,
I don't think there's
good.
I know I'm controversial, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the Deadly Assassin. There's nothing I can.
I was going to say I was worrying for a sec, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, I just think it's just as the first real Doctor Light story, companion Light story. I just think it's really just breaking new ground. The violence, I think, is amazing. The only thing I would say is maybe it just detracts from that all-powerful Time Lord status a bit. But I think it's a great reintroduction for the Master. I love that design with the crispy mask. I think that's fantastic. And yeah, I think this is where Tom Baker really hits his stride and he realizes how good he is, that he can carry this type of story.
Yeah, I feel I kind of wish that Hinchcliffe stayed on for a couple of more seasons. And let's say, I don't know, I feel I'd want more stories like this, darker, more violent stories that don't have a companion. Although,
I'd have loved to see his take on Key to Time.
Yes, yeah, that would have been really, really good, I think. I feel that could have been better than seasons 13 and 14, even though obviously we'll get to this in the next podcast episode. I probably prefer season 16 to any of these, but that's a bit of a hot take. So yeah, but it would have been so interesting because I love companion light episodes, not because I don't love the companions, but I feel I don't know. I feel companions are just there for the general, public watching, the casual viewers, as we call them, to, have an anchor to, so they don't get bored. Whereas, they don't have to have any exposition or comic relief or whatever in these stories. They can just go full on epic political thriller and Gallifrey. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I think there's a recurring theme in Companion Light episodes. They always challenge the Doctor more.
Yeah.
So you've got Deadly Assassin, you've got Heaven Sent, you've got Waters of Mars.
Yeah.
They always are that much more theatrical and darker and epic and grand.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel companions. Obviously it's been a sort of recurring line in New Who that the Doctor shouldn't travel alone because they go a bit dark and anti-hero thing. Companions are there to keep them grounded, which, I think is a very interesting point. Deadly Assassin. I feel the scenes in the Matrix as well, which they sort of predicted the film series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel those scenes were really cool. I do think it was, I don't know, this isn't my favorite of the era purely because I don't know, I feel like the Matrix scenes are a little dragged out. Like it went from being a deathly landscape where everything is trying to kill the Doctor to him and Goth having a bit of a brawl in a swamp. It just sort of deteriorates a little towards episode 3, but then it just picks it right up again with the final episode.
That's fair. That's a completely fair judgment.
Yeah.
I think.
Go on.
Go on. You can do the next story since
So another one for good, because there aren't really many terrible ones. I don't think there's any terrible ones in the Hinchcliffe era. Is Hand of Fear. Bit of a hot take for my third favourite of this era, but I just think it's a really solid story. I don't know. I feel it's hard to explain. This is like a story you'd watch on a rainy day. I think there's nothing really there, but at the same time, it's an enjoyable watch for if there's nothing else to do.
I think that sums up the story pretty well. I think, in my opinion, it's got some very average episodes in the middle, but the first and the last episodes, I think, are like probably some of the best in this era.
Yeah. I feel the whole setting with the the nuclear power station is really cool as well. Very it gives it a very gritty industrial feel. It's not actually that dissimilar from the Pertwee era, like season 7, which I think is cool. Since if you listen to the last podcast episode, yeah, me and Elliot were just basically praising season 7 for an hour. But anyway, I feel Eldrad. I feel since like Eldrad is actually the primary focus of this story, like Sarah being possessed by Eldrad and Eldrad must live and everything. I feel Eldrad is actually the weakest part of this story, but literally everything else is fantastic. I believe, well, not fantastic, but enjoyable. It's a fun one to watch.
I think the Eldrad part would have been better if they'd kept Eldrad in that Sarah Jane form rather than the final form it gets into. I really like it when I just like it when like Sarah Jane's possessed and when she's almost got like a Sarah Jane conscience still in that new Eldrad.
Yeah, kind of like in Marvel where they have the symbiotes. They're like one and the same. It's pretty interesting. And I feel Elizabeth Sladen's acting was fantastic for her last story.
Yeah. Do you know what I found out recently? That entire goodbye section, that was improvised.
Really?
Really?
That's pretty great.
Between Baker and Elizabeth Sladen, which is why there were so many problems like with the rest of season 14, sorry, with because Tom Baker was grouching around missing Liz Sladen.
That is yeah, that's pretty impressive that they improvised that. I didn't know there were many improvised scenes in classic Doctor Who. I thought that was more of a an interesting experimental thing they did maybe towards New Who, but that's a really interesting factoid.
There you go, follow them.
Yeah, so would you like to give us one more story and then maybe we'll discuss our number one favorites and least favorites?
Right. I'm tempted to bring up a season 12, but we talked enough about season 12, so I'm thinking about season 14 and 13. All right. Another good one. I'm going to say Brain of Morbius.
Yes. Yeah. It's pretty great.
It's one of those stories that my mum made sure I bought from when I started getting into Classic Who. It's one of those stories she remembers from when she was younger. And so, yeah, it's just like the gothic Frankenstein-esque story. It's just my cup of tea.
Yeah, and it's the famed one that hinted technically this is kind of the origins of the Timeless Child when you think about it.
It is, and when I saw that on the first viewing of Timeless Children, I thought, oh my god, it's Brains of Morbius.
Yeah.
But then I thought, but when I watched it the first time, because I was quite a bit younger, I just thought it was not Doctor incarnations, but Morbius incarnations.
Yeah, that's a fair enough thing, but I feel Timeless Children has kind of canonized the fact that they're doctors now, which is pretty cool, I'd say.
I don't mind it. As long as we get spin-offs with them.
Yeah, I feel I feel that this I don't like this as much. If we're talking seasons 12 to 14, this is probably, maybe towards the middle section. I feel it's a bit dragged out, to be honest. This could have been much better as a 2-parter, maybe. Maybe even 3-parter. I do feel it's a tad dragged out, but then again, lots of Classic Who is, and I feel most of its praises do lie with its execution and its atmosphere.
Yeah, and then I can't get enough of the Sisters of Khan. They are just like, I wish they came through more in Who. I wish we saw more of them because they're such interesting as an idea. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, that was a nice discussion of seasons 12 through 14, some of the stories we like and dislike, and now it is time for the the final section, the one with either really boring cliche opinions or some really, really unpopular ones. We've had both in the past. So why don't you start us off, Astro Sleep, on a positive note? What is your number one story for the Hinchcliffe era and Robot? It's probably not going to be Robot though, maybe.
No, it's not Robot.
Yeah.
My number one is the first story I ever watched. I watched it first when I was 4 on a repeat on TV. It was Pyramids of Mars.
Good choice. Yeah, that's a brilliant one.
It's just I was taking part in a poll on Discord, and I just kept on going through the season 13 trying to sabotage it so the Pyramids of Mars won, because it's in my top 10 stories of all time. It's my favorite Fourth Doctor story. It's so good. Sutekh is fantastic. The mummies, the setting, the idea of the time travel, where I just think it's never brought up again what would happen if the Doctor just walked away.
Yeah.
It's never brought up in the show again. I just love that idea and wish they explored it more. And I even love the hand that's on the chair that I got pointed out to me first time. It's just it's the one I've watched most of the Tom Baker era.
Yeah, that is a fantastic choice. It's not my favorite, thankfully, because it's really boring when we have the same favorite. But yeah, it's probably my like fifth or sixth. It's definitely up there. It is fantastic. I feel it's just got, I do like stories that focus on mythology. Like we obviously have Greek and Roman mythology from Underworld, Horns of Nimon, Time Monster. Not that some of those are the best stories ever, maybe.
But they're fun.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, you can't deny that. But yeah, this is obviously like Egyptian mythology. I feel it's just another classic Gothic horror story. It's another one that does arise the concept of unit dating, but yeah, let's not go into that again. And yeah, I feel Sutekh is just the most fantastic one-off villain in all of Doctor Who. I think he's brilliant.
I'd have loved him to come back, but at the same time, I don't know what other story he would work in.
Yeah, I don't know if you listened to this. There is a big Finnish story in the Fourth Doctor Adventures range. It's a two-parter, and it's Kill the Doctor and the Age of Sutekh. It's basically an epic two-parter with Sutekh. Obviously, yeah, it's a more obscure big Finnish story. It's not one of the most proclaimed ones or despised ones like Zagreus or something. But I really, really did love it. I would recommend that.
Thank you. So go on, what's your favourite?
Well, I thought, well, the usual order I do is guest's favourite, then both our least favourites, then my favourite, so we don't end up on two negative notes. So I'll go to my least favourite. This is going to be a bit of a weird one, but Robot. Yeah, I don't think this is a terrible story. I think it's just about good. If I were to rank it in like a tier of like, terrible, bad, meh, good, great, amazing, it would probably just go in good. I feel it's a nice introduction to the Fourth Doctor, but it's so cheesy, like, with the villains and the K1 robot. And I don't know. I feel this is just, some scraps left from the Pertwee era, which I don't think is the best way to open the Fourth Doctor's era.
Yeah, I do see it's aged not as well as the rest of this era.
Yeah, like in the tank as well.
The tank, the effects, the K1 robot, as you said, and whilst I think it does have a fun first part with the new Doctor and newly regenerated Doctor, with when he's trying on the costumes as well, I absolutely adore that, and the hopscotch and the skipping. Sorry, but I think the rest of it is a bit of a slog.
Yeah, it's it just for anyone saying, "Oh my god, I love Robot," how could you say that? I don't think it's bad. I don't think it holds a candle to most of the the Hinchcliffe era, because it has some really tough competition.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know if this is going to be a really unpopular opinion, but Astro, would you like to tell us your least favorite?
My least favorite. I was tossing up between two for a long time, but I eventually decided that I'd go for. I don't want to say it, but Talons of Weng-Chiang.
Well, yeah, it's not my favorite. That would have been a bit awkward, but yeah, it's not my favorite. And yeah, I can understand. Do you want to say some more about it?
Like, it's just, I can see why it's so highly regarded, but at the same time, it just doesn't dig with me. The giant rat, I hate. Leela at this point, I don't buy as a character, even though Robots of Death is better. But no, I just don't dig Leela. I don't dig the area that they're in. I don't dig the time. I never believe we are in there. Jago and Lightfoot, I'm probably going to get crucified, but I couldn't particularly care less about them. They're a bit of a nothing to me in terms of characters.
Yeah, I feel they were okay characters, but at the same time, they did not deserve like 12 seasons of Big Finish.
They did not deserve a spin-off at all. There are characters that deserve more of a spin-off than they do.
Yeah.
And then the elephant in the room there is obviously the racism.
Oh, yeah.
You can't go into that story and not avoid it. And it's just like, okay, I'd have understood it in the 62, so with Celestial Toymaker, etc. But then having it in the 70s, in 76, when it's quite what's the word? More up to date now. You've had the civil rights bill in America, you've had all the civil rights problems, and so you're still going back and doing this. When at the same time on other programs, they are hiring Asian actors, and you're just cloaking a white Englishman in yellowface.
Yeah, that's like, I feel you can't discuss Talons of Weng-Chiang, however much you may love the story, without having to go into that. It's one of the more embarrassing moments of Doctor Who, I think. Like, if I were to show my family some of my favorite Doctor Who stories from Tom Baker, although I do love this story, I definitely would probably skip over it.
Yeah, you couldn't watch it, say, with your grandma or...
No. Yeah, and same with like Creature from the Pit. You can't watch that in front of anyone. It's yeah. So yeah, that is.
You just can't watch it.
It's I feel fair enough that it's your least favorite. It's not mine, but it's I can understand why. To be honest, it is a bit overrated, I'd say. And we might
definitely.
we might as well finish with my favorite. And we've actually mentioned this, and we've talked about it quite a bit today. It's the Seeds of Doom, one of the ones that you didn't like as much. Yeah. I tried not to talk about it too much because I thought I'd save most of my thoughts for here. Seeds of Doom, I feel just Harrison Chase is one of the best one of the best acted, like, side villains in Doctor Who ever. I think it's really fantastic. The Krynoids look great. The Fourth Doctor is disturbingly violent in a really fun sort of way. Like, he just sort of runs around, he's punching people, he's like snapping someone's neck. It's really violent.
He's very, I think you agree. I think you touched upon a good point. It's a leftover of Pertwee. It's very much a Pertwee script. He's his most action hero, James Bond-esque here.
Yeah, and that's probably mostly why this is my favourite of the Hinchcliffe era, because Pertwee is my favourite Doctor, and the Pertwee era is probably my favourite era as well, maybe on par with, like, Eccleston and Tennant. Not Tennant, sorry, I take that back, Capaldi. Just disclaimer, Tennant, not my favourite era. Anyway, but yeah, Seeds of Doom, I feel the Krynoid looks amazing, as I said. Harrison Chase is fantastic. And I feel it just makes really effective use of setting. Like, although obviously they don't go much in the last like 2-3 episodes, the Antarctican stuff, and then moving it to to England, and we have Harrison Chase. It's just a really interesting way to do a 6-parter that I feel they never really did again. Like, I don't know, I feel like this might be the last 6-parter that I'd say I really love, besides Shada, maybe. What would you say?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair judgment on it, because I think it's the most globe-trotting classic Who really does in terms of in the story.
Yeah,
like,
or maybe Keys of
Marinus.
Maybe Keys of Marinus.
Yeah, but he keeps on going back to that bloody courtroom.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, I think with Seeds of Doom, I think part of the reason I don't gel with it as much is because I think Pertwee's my least favorite classic Doctor, but I love his era. I just don't like his Doctor as much. Like, I've never got it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Sacrilege to a lot of people, but I love his era. don't like his Doctor. It's the same with 11. I love 11's era, not too fond of 11's Doctor.
We can't send this to alternate.
Yeah, I know. That's one I've kept secret from the Discord.
Yeah.
As much as possible.
Yeah. So yeah, we've had a really good discussion. So we might as well wrap up a bit. I've not done this section before, really. I've just sort of said what are your final thoughts on the era, even though we kind of discussed that at first. But we might as well talk about the companions of this era. So what would you say like your ranking is of the 3 companions we've had in this era, from just worst to best?
Sarah Halley. Probably worst to best. Sarah, Leela, Harry. I think Harry's my favorite.
That's yes, another unpopular
bold.
opinion. Yeah. I would probably go Sarah, Harry, Leela. I don't know. I feel Leela's a very, very underrated companion.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think she's judged on the sexualization, which she is. She is very much sexualized for the dads, but she's a stronger character.
Yeah.
Even though she's in Tom Baker, in my opinion, Tom Baker's worst season 15. I don't like season 15 at all.
Yeah, that's fair enough. For me, it'd probably be season 17, but yeah, either way, I feel Leela is just a really interesting character. I don't know if some people listening might have heard this. She was originally meant to be introduced in Talons of Weng-Chiang as actually a chimney sweep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what her original backstory was, which I thought would have been, a bit more interesting, really.
Yeah, we'd have had Face of Evil, wouldn't we, without her?
Yeah, and Face of Evil. Well, let's not go into Face of Evil too much, but since we've talked about the stories, but yeah, I feel Harry as well. He is such an underrated companion. He was only in like 6 stories, but I feel he really shined in the ones he was in.
Oh yeah, he's lovable, isn't he? He's one of those people who's just he doesn't bat an eyelid. He's just, oh, I say.
Yeah. And
his entire character is summed up in that quote.
Yeah. And I watched Carnival of Monsters quite a bit before, well, not quite a bit before lots of these, but basically I was watching Carnival of Monsters, not realizing that Ian Marter was actually, that crewman. And I was thinking, he'd be quite a good companion. Looking through, yeah, and then I watched the credits at the end, Ian Marter. Oh, he is a companion. He's Harry. Okay.
I did the same. I didn't recognize him until I heard that voice, and he's just so recognizable. He's just so, I don't know. He's very British. He's very, very, very British.
Yeah. And as for Sarah Jane, she's a very good companion, I think. I do think she acts a bit childish sometimes. Maybe, as we were saying, maybe more of a generic 60s companion.
Yeah, I think she grows into the role. So mid-season 14, I think she's really good. But Sarah's never... I think her best work as a companion, in inverted commas, is actually in the modern era. I think when she's doing the Sarah Jane Adventures and when she's in, especially Stolen Earth, I think she just shows how good of an actress she is.
Yeah, and obviously, she definitely improved her acting skills. Not that they were bad before.
No. But she just sells that threat of danger from the Daleks, and then when she's talking to Davros.
Yeah, she's a really fantastic companion. Although, yeah, she does act a bit childish and maybe not as good in Classic Who, but she had some pretty strong competition.
Yeah, with the likes of Romanas and Joe Grant. I mean, following Joe Grant's gonna be a tough ask to follow.
Yeah, and like even from before, like Jamie and Ian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that pretty much rounds off this episode of the Best and Worst of Who. Please do comment below with your opinions on the Hinchcliffe era, and I will be back in a couple of weeks for the JNT Williams discussion. So thank you very much, Astro, for being on this.
No problem. I've really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, it's been good. Very unpopular opinions and some, nice discussion about Deadly
Yeah.
Assassin, Genesis of the Daleks. It's been pretty great. So thank you for watching, everyone, and goodbye.